Princess Sorelin stood on the wide observation deck of the warship Velthara, outside the tall glass windows. Stars sparkled like cold diamonds in the dark sky. She held her hands behind her back, her long silver hair tied in a sharp braid, her armor clean and perfect. She did not smile. The battle had been short. Another human colony on the edge of Zyrothi space had fallen. The humans fought bravely, but their weapons were weaker, their numbers fewer. It had been easy. Almost too easy. She had only taken one prisoner. The guards brought him in tall for a human. With a cut across his forehead and his hands bound, he walked without stumbling, his chin high. No fear in his eyes. That alone made her pause. Lieutenant Marcus Hale, one of the guards, said. Captured during the last stand at the colony's command post. Sorelin narrowed her eyes. So this was the man who had held off her forces for 15 extra minutes, long enough for several human escape. Ships to flee. She had lost 2 Zyrethi ships because of him. Unacceptable. The guards pushed him to his knees. But he refused to bow. You stand in front of Princess Sorelin, High Daughter of the Eternal Throne, one of the guards barked. Show respect. Marcus didn't move. He looked up at the princess, a smirk on his face. Respect is earned, he said simply. The room went silent. Sorelin walked forward slowly, her boots clicking on the polished floor. She stood before him, looking down into his strange blue eyes. You're very bold for a defeated man. She said, I don't feel defeated, Marcus replied. She tilted her head. You're my prisoner, and you think that makes me weak. You are alone, unarmed, chained. Your people ran. Your colony is in ashes. He looked around the room slowly, then returned his gaze to hers, calm, almost amused. You think I'm your captive, he said, but I've already started winning. That made her frown. Explain? I distracted you, long enough for civilians to escape. I broke 2 of your ships, so that's a win. You lost hundreds of people, and I saved thousands. That's a win too. Sorelin stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Take him to the ambassador's quarters, not the cells. The guards hesitated. Your Highness? He's a soldier, I said, the ambassador's quarters. The guards obeyed, pulling Marcus to his feet. He didn't struggle. As he walked away, he glanced over his shoulder and called, If this is your version of hospitality, Princess, I might just enjoy my stay. The ambassador's quarters were far better than any prison cell. A large bed, clean clothes, soft lighting, and even a window looking out into space. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, bandaged now across his forehead, and tried to make sense of his new surroundings. Why had she spared him? Most Zyrethi commanders killed prisoners, especially humans. He remembered her eyes. Cold, calculating, but not cruel. Not exactly. Curious, maybe? The next morning, 2 Zyrothi soldiers brought him to a chamber filled with strange lights and floating screens. Sorelin sat on a raised seat in the center, wearing a sleek black robe. Her crown floated just above her head, held up by anti-gravity tech. Her sharp silver eyes focused on him. She didn't waste time. What is the Terran military planning? Next, Marcus smiled. Breakfast. She didn't react. Where is Earth's next colony ship headed? No idea. I was stationed at one colony. I didn't get a tourist brochure. Sorelin leaned forward. You're being difficult. And you're asking the wrong questions. That surprised her. What do you mean? You want answers about our military? Boy. But what you need to ask is why we keep fighting when we're outgunned? She raised an eyebrow. Enlighten me. We're not fighting because we think we can win. We're fighting because freedom is worth dying for. Sorelin laughed softly. It wasn't a kind laugh. Freedom is a lie you tell children. Order is what keeps civilizations alive. Funny, Marcus said. We used to believe that too until we saw where it led. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. You're not afraid to die, no? Not. Even a little. I've seen what happens when people stop standing up for what matters. Death's better than slavery. Sorelin grew quiet. Over the next few days, she questioned him again and again. But their talks became something else. She asked about Earth's history, its music, its cities. He told her about rivers and mountains and animals that flew. She asked about human art. He showed her a small tattoo on his wrist, a date and a name. My sister, he explained. She died in the first wave of the war. Saralin said nothing, but her fingers curled slightly. On the sixth day, she brought a tray of Earth food made by the ship's AI chef. It wasn't perfect, but close enough. Marcus blinked. Is that lasagna? Close enough, she said. He laughed. You're trying to bribe me with pasta now? I'm trying to understand why a species with such terrible weaponry keeps making my generals nervous. He took a bite. Simple. We never give up, and we don't break the way you think we will. She watched him eat, then asked quietly, Don't you hate me? He looked up. No, I think you're trying to be something you were never allowed to be. She blinked. What do you mean? You weren't born cruel? You were trained to be cold. To win. You're still asking questions. That tells me you're not lost. That night, Saralin sat alone in her private quarters, watching a silent recording of their latest conversation. She rewound the moment where he said, You weren't born cruel? Something in her chest tightened. She didn't know why. She looked at her own reflection in the mirror, flawless, perfect, emotionless. That was the image her people needed, but she suddenly wasn't sure it was the one she needed. The next day, she walked into his room without guards. Marcus stood by the window, hands behind his back, staring at a passing comet. She said nothing. He didn't turn around? Finally, she asked, Why do you speak to me like an equal? Because you're not a god. You're a person in a shiny chair. And if I kill you tomorrow? He turned. His voice was calm. Then I'll die. But your war won't get any easier. Saralin stepped forward. You confuse me, human? He shrugged. Good. That means you're thinking. There was a long pause. Then softly, almost too softly, she whispered, I don't want to kill you. Marcus smiled. Then maybe you don't want to be your empire either. Princess Saralin stood in front of the observation window in her private chamber, watching stars drift by like silver dust. Her mind was not on the stars. It was on one human, Lieutenant Marcus Hale. He was still a prisoner, still alone, still dangerous. And yet she found herself drawn to his words. His calm voice echoed in her head. Maybe you don't want to be your empire either. That sentence had stayed with her longer than it should have. She told herself it was strategy. Understanding her enemy was important. Learning his way of thinking might help win the war. But deep inside, a small part of her whispered, You just want to talk to him again. Later that day, Saralin entered the room where Marcus waited. It was no longer an interrogation room. It had been turned into something else. Something between a study and a lounge. A table, 2 chairs, even a pot of hot tea. Marcus sat in one of the chairs reading a Zyrathi language tablet. He looked up when she entered, then smiled. Afternoon, princess, he said. New decoration? She didn't smile back. You should be afraid of me. I was, he said simply. But now, not so much. Why not? You haven't killed me yet. Every day you bring me closer to comfort than torture. Think if you wanted me dead, I'd already be ash. She sat across from him and poured herself tea. Do not mistake curiosity for kindness. I never do, he replied. But you're still here. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Saralin asked, What do you think of the Zyrathi Dominion? He raised an eyebrow. You sure you want the truth? Yes, you're conquerors. You take what you want. You use fear as a tool. You believe strength makes you right. She stirred her tea without looking up. Is that so different from early human empires? Not at all, Marcus admitted. That's why we know how dangerous it is. Do you believe we are dangerous? I believe your people forgot what it means to feel. That makes you worse. Then dangerous, it makes you empty. Saralin's hand paused on her cup. His words stung, but not because they were insults, because they felt close to truth. The next day, Saralin brought Marcus something unexpected, a small square device. He picked it up. A translator. She nodded. I want you to record a message. To Earth, your people. Marcus looked at her carefully. What kind of message? Tell them we have you, that you are alive, and, if you wish, tell them your thoughts. Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You trust me not to start a rebellion with this? She folded her arms. If your words can start a rebellion across light years, then you deserve to win. He smiled. Fair enough. In the recording, Marcus didn't say much about the war. He talked about stars. About how, even in the cold darkness of space, there was still light. He didn't plead for rescue. He didn't beg. Instead, he ended with, If we lose this war, let's lose it with honor. And if we win, let's not become like them. When Saralin watched the message later, something inside her shifted. She had expected anger or threats, but he had given them hope. Why? Why give your enemies hope? She found herself pacing the floor late that night, questions buzzing in her mind. The following morning, she asked something different. Tell me what Earth was like before the war. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Busy, loud, messy, and beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. Not in the clean, shiny way your ships are, but in the way cities wake up at dawn. Or the sound of music in street corners. We made mistakes, a lot of them, but we kept trying. Saralin tilted her head. Did you miss it? Every second. There was something in his voice she hadn't heard before grief. He didn't cry, didn't break down, but it was there, in the way he looked past her. Like he was staring into a memory. She wanted to ask more, but instead, she said, Do you think we're monsters? Marcus looked at her for a long time. I think you're taught to act like monsters, he said quietly, but I don't think you have to stay that way. Later that day, Saralin received a report from the ship's security chief. Lieutenant Hale has made contact with at least 2 lower-rank crew from species we've conquered. We believe he may be influencing them. Saralin's heart raced. Is he planning escape? We don't know, but he's spreading ideas. She dismissed the officer, but her mind was full. Marcus was not just talking to her, he was talking. 2 others, sowing thoughts, hope, doubt. She should have been angry, but deep inside, she felt something else. Pride. No, that was dangerous. She could not allow feelings to cloud her mind, but she also couldn't deny the truth. Marcus was changing things, slowly, quietly, including her. That evening, Saralin sat with Marcus again. I heard you've been speaking. 2 others on the ship? He didn't lie. Yeah, people talk to me. I listen. You're spreading rebellion. I'm spreading truth. If that leads to rebellion, maybe the system needs to break. You could be executed for that. Could execute me now? She stared at him. You want to die a symbol? She asked. No, he said softly. I want to live long enough to see someone like you change the galaxy. That silenced her. She looked away. That night, Saralin stood alone on the bridge, staring at the stars, her fingers tapped against her arm, restless, thoughts heavy. What if Marcus was right? What if everything she believed was built on fear? She had never asked those questions before. Now they haunted her, 1 week later. A new order came from the Zyrathi High Council. Saralin was to transfer Marcus to a prison planet, a place known for its cruelty. Clear message. Stop playing games. She held the order in her hand for a long time, then she burned it. She told the communication officer that the order was lost in transmission. She knew it was a risk, but she didn't care. She wasn't ready to give him up. Not yet. One day. She found Marcus sitting in the ship's garden demand area, usually reserved for high-ranking Zyrathi officers. He had never been allowed here. How did you get in here? She asked. Surprised, he smiled. The gardener let me in, said I talked to him like a person. She sat beside him. Why do you always smile? She asked. He looked at her. 'Cause no matter how bad things are, it means I'm still alive. Didn't know how to respond, so she said nothing. They sat together in silence, under artificial sunlight and alien trees, and for the first time, Saralin wondered what life could be like without war, without walls between species, without fear. Princess Saralin stood in the main strategy hall of the warship Valethera. Maps of star systems floated in the air. Battle reports scrolled down glowing screens. Her generals spoke, but their words were distant noise to her. She was not thinking about the war, she was thinking about the human, Marcus Hale. He was still her prisoner, and yet, somehow he had turned into something else. A mirror, a spark, a problem, or maybe a solution. Sorellen returned to her chambers and called up the latest security logs. Marcus had made contact with 4 more non-Zerothi crew members. Quiet conversations, short meetings. Harmless words on the surface, but she knew better. He was building something, not with weapons. With ideas, Marcus sat in the garden dome again, leaning against a smooth rock under glowing blue leaves. The sky above was fake, but peaceful. Sorellen entered, silent. He didn't look up. "You're worried," he said. She stepped closer. "You're clever, too clever. Clever enough to cause trouble." "Yes." He turned his head, meeting her gaze. "Then why let me stay free? 'Cause I want to see where this goes." He raised an eyebrow. Curious or hopeful? Both. They sat together. The silence between them was different. Not cold, but calm. "Tell me," she said suddenly. "If you had my power, what would you change?" Marcus thought for a long time. "Freedom, respect, choice," he said. "I'd let people decide who they are, not force it on them." She looked away. "What if I told you your ideas are spreading?" He smiled faintly. "Then I'd say it's about time." A few days later, Sorellen was awakened by a sharp buzz. An alarm. Security breach. Engine sector. Firefight reported. She rushed to the command deck. Red lights flashed. Officers shouted. The screen showed Chaos Zerothi guards firing at a group of rebelling engineers, most of them non-Zerothi species. One of them had shouted, "On open comes, we want justice, not silence." Her second in command, Commander Var, turned to her. "The humans started this." Sorellen's heart pounded. "Is he among them?" "No, but he planted the seed." She stared at the screen. She should crush this. She should stop it before it spread. But her voice shook as she gave the order. "Stun weapons only, no executions." Commander Var hesitated. "Princess, that's an order." Marcus sat calmly in his room when the guards stormed in. They found no weapons. No plans. Only a man sitting with a small plant he had. Been growing in a corner pot. "You're under arrest," one guard growled. Marcus stood up slowly. "For what?" "Inciting rebellion," he sighed. "I only talked." They bound his wrists again, but this time they took him to a cold metal cell, no windows, no comfort, no tea. Sorellen stood outside the cell, watching him through the glass. He looked tired but not afraid. "You said you wanted to help people." She said, "I did. This is how chaos. Blood. I didn't tell them to fight. I gave them words. They chose what to do with them. You're dangerous." He looked at her sadly. "Because I believe in choice. Because people are listening." Stepped closer to the glass. "You are listening to Sorellen. That's what scares you." Later. In the War Council meeting, her father appeared on the large screen. Emperor Verax. His voice was iron. "You have allowed rebellion aboard your ship. You have allowed a human to poison our ranks. You are weak." Sorellen stood tall. "But I am understanding." "The enemy? No," he growled. "You are becoming like them." He ordered her to execute Marcus publicly. She didn't answer right away. Later that night, she stared out at the stars and whispered, "What if becoming like them is the only way to survive?" Meanwhile, the fire in the lower decks hadn't gone out. Small acts of disobedience spread. Zerothi officers reported more crew questioning orders, talking back, refusing to punish others. Ideas were moving faster than weapons ever could. Sorellen visited the cell again. "I have to choose," she told Marcus, "between obedience and belief." He nodded. "It's always like that, but you already know what you want. I want peace." "Then fight for it, even if it's against your own blood." The next day, Commander Var tried to take matters into his own hands. He gathered loyal guards and made a plan to cleanse the rebellion, start with the lower decks. Then Marcus, then anyone else, showing sympathy. Sir Ellen found out just in time. She stormed into the armory where Var was, preparing his squad. "This is treason," she said coldly. He didn't flinch. "No, Princess. You are the traitor now." Blasters were raised. For a moment, the ship stood on the edge of civil war. Sir Ellen slowly pulled out her own sidearm. "I am still your princess," she said. "I am giving you one last order. Stand down." Silence. Then a few guards lowered their weapons. The rest followed. Var was taken into custody, and Sir Ellen, shaking with adrenaline, walked out and said only one word to the nearest officer: "Release the human." Marcus was brought to the bridge this time. It's unchained. Sir Ellen stood waiting. Around her were officers, Zarathia, yes, but also others. Korlari techs, Edamiri medics, and a few humans from the escapees taken weeks ago. All of them silent. All of them watching. Sir Ellen turned to Marcus. "You said you wanted change. I am offering you a voice. Not just for humans, but for all." He blinked. "You mean, yes?" she said. "Help me end this war." From the inside, he stepped forward. "You'll have enemies. I already do. You'll need allies. I have you." He smiled. "That's a start." Together, they called a ship-wide broadcast. The princess and the prisoner, side by side. Sir Ellen spoke first. "I was born to rule, but I was never taught how to listen." She paused, then looked straight into the camera. "Until now." Marcus spoke next. "This isn't about species. It's about choice. If you want to live in a galaxy where freedom matters, where truth matters, then stand up, speak out. We don't need a throne. We need each other." That day, Vale'thara became more than a warship. It became a symbol of rebellion, of hope, of something new. And as the stars passed quietly outside, Sir Ellen whispered to herself, "This is only the beginning." The warship Vale'thara no longer felt like a prison. Not to Marcus. Not even to the crew. In the weeks after the broadcast, everything had changed. Some Zyrothi officers remained loyal to the old empire, but many began to question their orders. Some joined Sir Ellen and Marcus. Others simply stepped aside. Even the stars outside. The ship seemed to shine brighter now. But peace was never simple, and not everyone was ready to see a human and a Zyrothi princess stand together. Princess Sir Ellen stood beside Marcus on the ship's command bridge. The giant glass panel showed a quiet planet below a mining colony known as Karath. It had once been a Zyrotha-controlled labor world, but the workers there had overthrown their overseers after hearing the message from Vale'thara. Sir Ellen had sent them supplies, medical aid, engineers. She wanted to prove she meant peace. Marcus looked down at the planet and smiled. "Hey." One spark becomes a fire. She nodded. "Now we must make sure it doesn't burn us too." But behind them, trouble was already brewing. In the lower decks of the ship, a small group of loyalist officers met in secret. They were led by Commander Var's brother, Officer Relic. "These traitors have poisoned the princess's mind," Relic hissed. "She walks beside a human like he's her equal," others murmured. Relic slammed his fist on the table. "We are Zyrothi, born to rule. We cannot let this rebellion spread further." He held up a device. "This is a signal beacon. Once activated, it will alert the High Council. Their fleet will arrive in 2 cycles." The others stared at him in shock. "But they'll destroy the ship," one officer said. "Let them," Relic whispered. "Better that than let our empire fall to human." Lies. Back on the bridge, Marcus noticed Sir Ellen was quiet. "Something's bothering you," he said. "I keep thinking about my father," she replied. "The Emperor. He won't stay silent. He will send a fleet. He will send assassins. Will burn every system we try to free." Marcus nodded. "That's what tyrants do when they're afraid." She turned to him. "What do rebels do?" He smiled gently. "They stay loud." But they didn't know the signal had already been sent. That night, someone tried to kill Marcus. It happened in the garden dome where he often walked at night. A shadow moved behind a tree. A blade flashed, but Marcus was trained. He dodged just in time, rolling to the side and kicking the attacker down. More guards came running. They caught the assassin before he could escape. Sorellen rushed to the medical bay when she heard the news. Marcus had a long cut on his shoulder, but he was alive. When she saw the blood, her heart clenched. More than it should have, you could have. Died, she whispered. He smiled, tired. You'd miss me. She didn't answer. She only sat beside him and took his hand. The attacker confessed under questioning. It was one of Relic's men. But he didn't know about the signal beacon. Not yet. The real danger was still coming. 2 days later, the Zyrothi fleet arrived. 10 giant warships appeared from hyperspace. It's like shadows crawling across the stars. They blocked all exit paths. Their leader was High Admiral Jern, loyal to the Emperor, crueler than any commander Sorellen had ever met. He sent one message to Vale'thara, Princess Sorellen. You will surrender the human and your ship, or be destroyed. Sorellen's officers looked to her. Some were ready to fight, some were ready to give up. She looked at Marcus. He gave her a small nod. Your choice, his eyes said. She stepped forward and answered the call. No, she said clearly. This ship is free, and I am no longer your puppet. Okay. Admiral Jern's eyes narrowed. Then you will die a traitor, he ended the call. Missile locks blinked red on the screen. The fleet was preparing to attack. Shields up, Blinn ordered. But do not fire. Marcus turned to her. What's the plan? She thought for a moment, then said hope. He raised a brow. I like hope, but I prefer backup plans. She smiled. Then let's make one. Secretly, Marcus and Sorellen activated the emergency broadcast systems. They sent a signal not just to Zyrathi ships, but to every nearby system, a single powerful message. This is Princess Sorellen of the Dominion. We do not want war. We want peace. If you believe in freedom, stand with us. Within minutes, answers came in, not from military ships, but from smaller vessels, freighters, colony ships, civilian stations. They couldn't fight, but they blocked the warships, surrounding Vale'thara, forming a protective ring, a peaceful wall. Of resistance, Admiral Jern sneered on screen again. Do you think these weaklings can stop me? Marcus stepped into view. No, he said. But if you attack us, you won't just kill a rebel ship. You'll kill your own people. There was a pause, a very long pause, and then one of the Zyrathi warships broke formation. Then another, and another. 3 captains refused to fire. They lowered their weapons. The rebellion was spreading, even within the fleet. But Relic wasn't finished. Furious at the failure of the plan, he stormed the engine room with a small squad. He planned to overload the court to destroy the ship, everyone on it. Marcus heard the alarm first. He and Sorellen ran through the halls together. Side by side, they reached the engine chamber, just as Relic was setting the charge. Stop, Sorellen shouted. You'll kill thousands. Relic turned to her, eyes wild. Better than letting our blood mix with theirs. Marcus stepped forward. You're wrong. You think loyalty means blindness? It doesn't. It means standing for what's right. Relic raised his blaster. Sorellen didn't hesitate. She fired first. The blast hit Relic's arm. He dropped the weapon, screaming. Her guards rushed in and arrested him. The bomb was defused. Later that night, Marcus sat alone in the garden, stars shining quietly above. Sorellen walked in and sat beside him. They didn't speak for a while then. She said softly, You saved my people. No, he said. You saved them. I just reminded you how. She looked at him. Really looked not as a prisoner, not even as a human, but as something more. I was taught to fear your kind, she whispered. But now I understand. What? He asked. That sometimes your enemy is the only one who tells you the truth. He smiled. And sometimes your enemy becomes your friend. She reached out and took his hand. Not as a leader, not as a rebel, but as someone who wanted a better future. Together. The galaxy had changed. One ship had challenged the power of an empire. One message had lit a fire across the stars, and at the center of it all stood a princess. In a human, Saralan and Marcus had become symbols. To some, they were heroes. To others, they were traitors. But the most dangerous enemies were not far away. They were close, watching, and waiting. It had been 3 weeks since the Zyrathi fleet left Vale'thera alone. Saralan used that time to strengthen the alliance. More ships arrived every day, freighters, science vessels, merchant cruisers, all choosing to stand for peace. Together, they called themselves the Free Star Union. They had no emperor. No masters. Just a promise. Freedom for all species. But peace is always temporary when fear still lives, and the Emperor Saralan's father was not done. A secret message arrived encrypted. Only for Saralan. She opened it in private. The image that appeared on her screen made her chest tighten. It was her. Father.Emperor.Virex.Old. Proud. Coldhay didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He only said one thing. Return home. Alone, or your mother dies. Her blood froze. She hadn't seen her mother in years. The Empress had always been quiet, kind. She hated the war, but she had no power in court. A shadow. Behind the throne, now she was a hostage. Saralan's hands shook. She closed the message and stared at the screen in silence. She didn't tell anyone at first, not even Marcus, but he noticed something had changed. He found her later in the ship's observatory. Sitting by the window, staring out at the stars, like they might give her an answer. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm always quiet, no." He said, "You're calm when you lead. But now you're heavy. Like something's pulling you down." She turned to him, eyes full of pain. "My father has my mother," she whispered. Marcus blinked. "What?" "He wants me to return. Alone. If I don't, she dies." Marcus was silent for a long time. Then he said, "It's a trap. I know. Why are you thinking of going?" She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You can't give him what he wants. If you go, he'll kill you both." "I'm his daughter," she said. "He won't kill me." "You're his greatest threat," Marcus replied. "He already sees you as dead." Later that day, she gathered her council. She told them the truth. Some begged her to stay. Others offered rescue missions. But she raised her hand and said simply, "I will go alone," as he asked. Marcus stood suddenly. "No, I won't let you." She looked at him gently. "You don't have the power to stop me." He stepped forward, voice trembling. "I don't care about the war. I don't care about the rebellion. I care about you, everyone." In the room went quiet. Saralan looked stunned. For once she didn't know what to say. He reached for her hand. "You gave me a voice. Let me use it now." Scared, hand, heart pounding. Then she pulled her hand away. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "This is my burden." And she walked out the next day. She took a small shuttle and left the Vale'thera alone. The crew watched in silence as the ship vanished into hyperspace. Marcus stood on the hangar deck, fists clenched, heart burning. He wasn't going to let her die. He had made his choice. 2 days later, Saralan landed on the imperial capital, Zyrith Prime. The skies were dark. Towers were cold steel. She was escorted by guards in black armor. No words, only guns. They brought her into the Emperor's throne room. He sat there, tall and silent. Her mother knelt beside him, pale and thin, but alive. "Welcome home," Rex said. Saralan stood tall. "I am not yours to command anymore." His face twisted. "You are Zyrathi royalty. You were born to rule." "I was born to choose," she answered. He stood, eyes burning. "You chose a human over your people? I chose peace over fear." He turned to the guards. "Take her to the tower. Let her think about what she's done." They dragged her away. But as they did, sky outside changed. Explosions lit. Up the clouds, a fleet had arrived. But not Zyrathi, free starships, led by Vale. Hera Marcus had followed her, not in secret, not in anger, but with help. He had spoken to the other leaders. To the crews, to the people Sorellen had saved, they had all agreed. "We don't follow you because you are Xyrathi," Marcus had said. "We follow you because you gave us hope, and we're not letting that hope die." Now, their fleet surrounded Xyrath Prime. They didn't fire, but their message was clear. Let her go, or face 1,000 voices screaming for justice. Inside the tower, Sorellen heard the sirens. A guard ran into her cell, panic on his face. "Your fleet is here," he growled. She smiled. He came. The door exploded open. Marcus stood in the smoke, blaster in hand. Behind him, rebels and allies stormed the halls. She ran to him. "You're insane," she said. "Maybe," he said, grinning. "But I'm also in love." She froze, then laughed. "Idiot." She kissed him anyway. The Emperor tried to flee, but the people rose. The Xyrathi citizens had seen the message. They had heard the truth. They'd turned on him. The palace fell not by force but by choice, just like Sorellen had hoped. Weeks later, the galaxy held its breath as Sorellen stood before a united council. Xyrathi, humans, Korlari, Venari, dozens of species all together. She stepped forward. "No more thrones," she said. "No more empires, just voices. Equal free." Cheers filled the chamber. The Freestar Union was real, not just a dream. Anymore. Marcus stood at the edge of the crowd. Sorellen. "Walked over? Tired?" he asked, exhausted, but free. She nodded. "I never asked," he said. "What did I say that first day? It made you stop and listen?" She thought for a moment, then smiled. "You said, 'I'm not afraid of you.'" He chuckled. "Still true?" She took his hand. "Neither am I." And together, under a new sun, they walked forward, not as captive and captor, not even as human and alien, but as two people who chose to change everything together.